the guy that you're going to be hearing from on the air here on 1160 AM KBDT in Dallas, Texas, and maybe someday on the USA Radio Network. Anyway, he was wearing the exact same sweater I was wearing. It was very embarrassing. Not so much that we were wearing the same sweater, but that it looked so much better on him. See, that bothered me. I mean, so there you go. And it was really funny. Israel, one of our sales guys here in Dallas, he said he has one of those sweaters. That's great. We would look like the Bobsy twins. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. That is our telephone number. We have the Wells Report. Streaming video going, so you can clue in on that if you want to. There are 3 people watching now. Three people. So you can join us, and now let's get our show going, shall we? This was always distressing to me, and it's been incredibly distressing to me. But it's something we got to talk about because some things have really, shall we say, have really kind of popped up here. In 2017, there were 10 campus stories involving racial hatred. A black cadet at the Air Force Academy said he found a racist message in his dorm. Lieutenant General Jay Silveria said in a speech that went viral, "If you can't treat someone with different dignity and respect, then get out." Turns out the episode was a hoax. The cadet had committed the hate crime all by himself. I said, should he be treated like someone who had committed a hate crime, even though it was arguably a hate crime against his own race? And I said, yes. Yes, he should be treated as if he had committed a hate crime against his own race because he committed a hate crime against his own race. Hate crime is hate crime for me. The 2014 Rolling Stone article, "A Rape on Campus," that had its own problems. A discredited story about a rape at the University of Virginia involving the Phi Kappa Psi fraternity. After that article was published, a $1.65 million defamation suit against Kappa Psi was settled because of false claims. The College Fix has pointed out that there are hate crimes that are falsely reported. Following President Trump's election and inauguration, several universities saw an increase in such reports. One student at the University of Michigan faked an attack because of what she called post-election surge in hate crimes. The UM student was fined $660, was suspended, and was on a suspended 93-day jail sentence pending probation adherence for falsely reporting a hate crime. She admitted to having mental health issues when she pled guilty, but at the time she told police she was targeted for wearing a solidarity pin. She admitted scratching herself with the solidarity pin after becoming upset at a women's literature class at the University of Michigan, according to the Ann Arbor Police Department. At Michigan State, one misplaced item, the entire campus went into a racial uproar. MSU President Lou Anna Simon released a statement commending one student for her courage in reporting a racial incident involving a noose on campus. The noose, by the way, was a lost shoelace that had been tied in an overhand hitch on a bight, which is a bend in a rope. A bight is a bend on a rope, and you take it and you wrap it around in an overhand hit, just like a simple overhand knot. And they said that was a noose. A noose. In case you happen to be looking on television, if you go to Facebook Live events, If you go to Facebook Live events, I will show you this supposed noose. I will show it to you right this very moment. You can go and look. Okay, that's a noose. Now, I don't want to bring up a horrifyingly terrible, awful story, but the last time I remember someone throwing an entire university campus into an uproar over something involving a noose, it had to do with the lynching of an African American kid for nothing. And what they ended up doing was they wrapped his neck with barbed wire and dragged him behind a truck. I can't remember what Southern University went completely haywire over that, but they should have. Now we go haywire over a shoelace? Really? Are we maybe looking just a little too hard for outrage these days? I mean, think about this for just a couple of seconds. If you can't show up with a shoelace, right? How about this? How about if everybody mandates that you wear loafers? Well, wait a minute. Are we talking about lazy people? And wait a minute. What about? It's like 6 degrees of outrage. Instead of 6 degrees of separation, it's 6 degrees of outrage. Something always ties back to some sort of outrageous racial hatred moment. And it's all because of white people. At a school in rural Minnesota, a piece of paper, which also turned out to be a hate crime hoax, resulted in classes being canceled for a day. A note that used the N-word and threatened a black female student at St. Olaf College inspired a student-led protest against international racism at the school and cancellation of classes. The only problem was not a genuine threat. This, according to the school's president. The author of the note confessed to fabricating it to draw attention to concerns about the campus climate. You see, it's not that it's actually a real problem of racism on campus. It's that in some person's idea, the climate on campus is racial and therefore demands some kind of racial symbology to prove the point. This is where you walk away from reality and you start getting upset about fantasy land, self-inflicted acts of hate that you can be outraged about. You know what that's called? Mental illness. In Ohio, a Bowling Green University student accused the school of harboring an active KKK group. Turned out the evidence was a piece of lab equipment covered with white cloth. How does this promote diversity and inclusion? The student asked. The Falcons president responded, we looked into this. BGSU, Bowling Green State University. The president, Mary Ellen Mazzei, tweeted, we discovered it's a cover on a piece of lab equipment. This is the same campus where a student falsely reported that a group of white Trump supporters threw rocks at her while yelling racial slurs after the election. And of course, that immediately leads me to focusing almost as if a laser had been directing my thoughts onto a mainstream media trying to hang white supremacy and racism on President Trump. Seriously? That was such a screwed up story that the people reporting it forgot to mention that Nazis and the were socialist leftists. There is no such thing as an alt-right. It's an alt-left. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists are leftists. And if you don't believe me, ask any progressive you happen to see what a Dixiecrat is. When they stop hemming and hawing and start lying, that's when you'll know I've proven my point. There's more. There's more. This is completely and ridiculously awful. The 10 hate crimes on campus from Fox News. Caleb Parker is the guy. Oh, no, Caleb Park wrote this article. Brilliant article. And unfortunately, way, way too prevalent in the United States. Stick around. Cashmere. Ah!
All right, man. Sounding good.
Thank you, sir. Cashmere. So you can really see out the windows in the broadcast today, which is kind of cool. Let's see, 5 people are watching now. That means I need to go to my Facebook page and do 2 things. One, see, I haven't been on my Facebook page because I've taken the time off. I've taken time off. I've taken time off. Okay. Paste. And then I highlight and copy that again. Copy. And then I do this. And then I do, oh my God. Remind me later. Post. That's an interesting little photo. I'm looking at you right in the face. Let's see here. Where is my Wells Report group? The Wells Report group. There we go.
I got 2 minutes.
2 frickin' minutes. 2 frickin' minutes. 2 frickin' minutes. Print. No. Oh, John, that's not what you want to paste. Dumbutsky. Dumbutskalaya, catfish pie, filet gumbo. Okay. Funny. Dinesh, you're so funny. Dinesh D'Souzaman. Oh, good. Thank you for following me, Eric. Thank you for following me, Well-Fed Kids. And thank you for following me, Linda. That's on Twitter. That's on Twitter. Let's see here. Talk. Live.com.
Back in 10 seconds.
Back in 10 seconds then. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. Thanks very much for joining us today. In New York City, a Pakistani-American college student claimed that 3 masked men racially assaulted and robbed him. The Queens College student recanted the story in May following a police investigation. Assistant Professor Azhar Hussain of Indiana State University was arrested for allegedly creating fake anti-Muslim threats in March. They're not fake anti-Muslim threats. They're real anti-Muslim threats. That they are foisted on all of us by Muslims makes no difference. A hate crime is a hate crime. If that law is going to have any kind of credibility at all, then anybody who commits one, regardless of race, creed, color, gender, what have you, if we're going to have hate crime law, then somebody who is a member of the very group that they're foisting a hate crime against all of us, that's a hate crime. Hussein was charged with obstruction of justice and a misdemeanor charge of harassment. One day after Trump's election, a Muslim San Diego State University wearing a hijab claimed that Trump supporters stole her purse, backpack, and then her car. She claimed the robbers were saying things like, "Now that Trump is president, get ready to start fleeing." She said she no longer felt safe on campus, adding, "My religion just being so visible breaks my heart that I'm such a target for most people just because of the religion I chose." It was a report that she had forgotten where she parked her car. After SDSU police disproved her claim in their hate crime investigation, the student then decided not to pursue charges against herself. Would she have gone blind? I mean, if she charges herself with a hate crime that she committed against herself, isn't that? That's talk later? Okay. At Capital University in Columbus, Ohio, a student claimed to have had a hate-filled note taped to his door with racist and homophobic language. But after campus police investigated, the student admitted to false reports. In 2015, he pulled a similar stunt with a note containing racial slurs and swastikas. The police at the time didn't find a suspect, but the campus community hosted an inclusivity march to combat possible hate crime. Possible hate crimes. In the fall of 2016, he also reported being attacked by a white male, which turned out to be fabricated as well. How do you fabricate a white male? Oh, I know. The boy bee meets the girl bee. Okay. Laird Wilcox, author of the book Crying Wolf, Hate Crime Hoaxes in America, told Fox News, it's widely recognized now that college campuses have become the perfect incubator for fake hate crimes. I would say now that 80% of these events happen on campus are hoaxes or pranks. It's a place where consciousness of discrimination, sexism, and homophobia is at a peak. And when there's nothing happening, they make it happen. Well, to me, a hate crime is a hate crime is a hate crime. But did you hear that there was an inclusivity march because of the possibility that there might be a hate crime? Did you hear that SDSU police did not follow and actually charge the woman who perpetrated a hate crime against herself? They didn't arrest her for a hate crime? Yeah, there were a couple of people that were charged for fake hate crime, except it's not fake. It's real hate crime. If you're a Muslim and you say that all Muslims suck, that's a hate crime. It's also bigotry. And that ought to cancel your university trip ticket. At least for a year. You want to play games with this? Fine. Welcome to reality. You just lost a year's tuition. That's only about 25 grand. You know, you do stuff like that, and all of this will go away. But when there's zero accountability, there's zero reason to not have the hate crime du jour, whether it's real or not. Not trying to be a jerk or anything, but you know what I need? As a white male never guilty of a racist crime, a racist act, a hate crime of any kind, and yet blamed for it and beaten about the head and shoulders by a liberal media and a liberal there and a liberal there. How about this? why don't you liberals start stomping on your own here for a while, okay? Because they're the ones that are actually committing the hate crimes. I'm just saying, okay? And I got a lot of company too. You're listening to the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network.
All right, sir.
Well, all right, sir.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. Let's see here. So what I need to do is I need to go to here. Roy Weedy. I know Roy Weedy. Weedy. Oops. Damn. Ah, here we go. Bill at TalkStream Live. Okay. Let's go over here. USA. Do do doodly doo. Ba-do doo doodle doo. Let's see, wait, hold on. I want to stop that. I want to hit that. Okay.
Back in 1 minute.
Back in one dang minute. Outstanding.
Ten seconds.
Eight four four 927 is the telephone number that will get you through to this fine, high-quality radio broadcast. My name is John David Wells. Over the weekend, over the holiday, I was fortunate to be able to interact with someone who is a female who is outraged by sexual harassment. And she and I had been talking back and forth about the realities of sexual harassment, of which there are few. There are not many realities regarding sexual harassment. Now, before you go completely crazy, I'm not saying that there is no such thing as sexual harassment. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that when it comes to the discussion of sexual harassment, when it comes to the actual public debate, there really does not need to be any reality. This particular woman had decided that President Trump must be guilty of sexual harassment because 19 women were angry at him for sexually harassing them. A singer and potential congressional candidate said she filed a sexual harassment complaint against President Trump's former campaign manager for smacking her twice on the buttocks during a Washington gathering in November. Joy Villa, a Trump backer, said she plans to meet with detectives in Washington next week about the complaint against Corey Lewandowski. In a phone interview from Tampa, Villa said she was initially reluctant to come forward because she was worried about any backlash. I mean, wasn't it a couple of backlashes that got her into this to begin with? Because you see, he smacked her on the butt. Okay. I didn't know him at all. I only knew him by reputation. He broke my trust. What? She said she saw him at a gathering at the Trump International Hotel the day after Thanksgiving and said Lewandowski struck her extremely hard, even though she told him to stop. She said she felt it was disgusting and shocking and demeaning. Okay. And we're going to meet with a detective. File a sexual harassment complaint. I'm sure she has all the required witnesses and so on and so on. Let's see. She's considering running for a Florida congressional seat. She initially thought it was sexual harassment, but police told her that touching someone on any part of their body is sexual in nature and constituted sexual assault. Now, which, by the way, gives me an opportunity to say that there is a difference between sexual harassment and sexual assault. Okay? Sexual harassment is talking about a particular body part, like a fine feminine form that you slap. Sexual harassment or sexual assault is actually slapping it. Man, incredibly rude. I was initially fearful to come forward with this, saying she did not want to bring shame or embarrassment to Lewandowski's family or hers. I did nothing wrong. I realized he's not going to respond or apologize to me. I think it's the right thing to do. Well, we've seen that when it comes to sexual harassment, apologies mean nothing. Even heartfelt, real apologies are immediately discounted by the press, and there's no point in apologizing. But nowhere in this article, and this is not clearly, this is an AP article, this is an Associated Press article. Nowhere in this article does this say anything about witnesses or what kind of case. Lewandowski did not respond. This is not the first time he faced police charges. In March of 2016, he was charged with misdemeanor battery for an altercation involving a female reporter after a news conference in Florida. Remember, he grabbed her and pushed her away or something like that? The charges were later dropped. I'm not exactly sure that there's any real charge in this. But what I was discussing with this woman on Facebook was the fact that you still need proof. Absent proof, there is no crime. in a court of law. And this is where these are going. And she said, poppycock, all a woman has to do is be credible. Okay. And I brought up Tawana Brawley. And I brought up Juanita Broderick. Now, that was pretty much the end of the conversation because there wasn't anything to say after that. Because those were both credible people until they weren't. As a matter of fact, Juanita Broderick is still credible, but nobody pays any attention to her. Why? Well, because the Democrats involved. Well, John David, I think you might be taking that just a bit too far. Oh, really? The Justice Department has scolded the Obama administration today following a report on how sexual harassment of all kinds was improperly handled at the department for years. The Washington Post reports that the DOJ's Inspector General found systemic problems with how complaints were addressed, with offending officials often let off the hook or even rewarded. The article cited investigative reports on a lawyer who allegedly groped 2 female attorneys and a top U.S. Marshals official who had sex with approximately 9 women in his office. Though complaints have been filed as recently as August, the IG said some of the worst alleged offenses happened years ago in the department's civil division. Ian Pryor, a spokesman in the Trump Justice Department, would not comment on details about the allegations, but described the problems as largely contained to the prior administration. The department does not discuss specific employee disciplinary actions or comments on personnel actions or matters that may impact personal privacy. That said, the department was very disappointed with the issues that occurred in the Obama administration and strives for a workplace free of harassment and other misconduct for all of the 115,000 employees. That's why the civil division has implemented additional safeguards and systems to ensure that all misconduct allegations are handled appropriately going forward. Oh, really? I'm sorry. Were those charges against Ray Moore going forward or going backward? They were going backward, weren't they? I mean, we're going backward 40 years. Is that right? The ones against Dustin Hoffman. I mean, all these people, these fragile women that were afraid to complain because, as you know, in 1997, 10 years ago, it was women they were in kitchens barefoot, pregnant, and expected to stay there. Oh, wait, that's not right. That hadn't happened since 1970. That gets us back to the 40 years ago. Well, wait. Then what we have to do is, in order to be able to have someone have their entire life destroyed, all we need are complaints by credible women, according to this person that I was dealing with in Facebook. You know what I said? I said the angry complaints of 19 women are no substitute for the measured deliberations of 12, referring to a jury of someone's peers after moments of due process. Now, did the women in the civil division of the Department of Justice during the Obama administration, did they have their cases ignored? Yeah. But how come those cases aren't coming forward? How come those officials who are still involved in government aren't being immediately thrashed and sent home in disgrace? Why is that? It's about that credibility thing again. Now, there are women who are attacked, both verbally and physically. Sexual harassment and sexual assault. Those women have a real story to tell. Those women are afraid to come forward. Why are they afraid to come forward? Well, because there's so much selective outrage. Women deciding that, well, this story really isn't important because, well, yeah, I mean, I was on an airplane. I was on Air Force One with, no, it wasn't. It was actually his campaign flight. I was on a campaign flight with President Obama one day when he realized that he had one of those spontaneous moments of happiness. You know what I mean. Usually they happen to high school guys in algebra class, where they're sitting there peacefully minding their own business. They have a moment of happiness just in time for the professor to call them to the board to work on a problem. And you are there in a moment of happiness. Are you getting my drift as to what I'm talking about? The President of the United States the soon-to-be President of the United States made a very big show. I mean, it was a very impressive show about this particular moment of happiness, standing up in front of the entire cabin filled with women who were laughing, by the way, laughing because they were, of course, embarrassed, and they were horrified, and they were terrified and angry and all that kind of stuff, but they masked it because they were afraid of losing their jobs, laughing at the soon-to-be President of the United States. Well, I was going to say, because he really pulled a boner. But actually, he didn't. He didn't. He just shared it with everyone. I mean, the video's out there. You can see it. But President Trump is the guy that's got the sexual harassment problem? Is that really what's going on? Getting back to the credibility thing again, we have a real problem here, don't we? Once again, the women who are actually being abused are being submerged by selective outrage based on politics. The mainstream media looks dumber every day because they don't actually cover the real story. Yeah, Fox News covers DOJ scolds Obama administration after reported groping and harassment and office sex. But where's the Washington Post article? Oh, no, the Washington Post article is about Corey Lewandowski. Yeah, that's Corey, that dang Corey kid. I mean, you know, yeah. See my point? If women want to destroy, or men, if someone wants to destroy somebody else for sexual harassment or sexual assault, we have to quit using it as a political bludgeon for political advantage. It can't be a political thing. It has to be a real thing. That makes it a crime. If it's a crime, there has to be due process. That requires more than credibility. It requires proof. In a court of law, after due process, whereupon someone can have their day in court and confront their accuser. And if there is no confrontation, if there is no proof, there is no crime. We do not put people in jail or in exile, figuratively or actually. We don't put them on blacklists without due process. And I'm watching all of this witch hunting going on around the United States involving, Republican senatorial candidates. I'm watching all of this go around. And yet I find absolutely no one going after famous Democrats for even worse circumstances at all. Nobody's doing a thing. Telephone number is 844-927-6691. You either have due process and you either prove your point in a court of law or you don't. If you have decided that you are not, indeed not going to complain because somebody just paid you a whole bunch of money, then 20 years later, you don't get to complain about somebody because they paid you a whole bunch of money. Your outrage was bought and paid for. Or am I wrong here? 844-927-6691. Excuse me?
All right, man. Ray guy wants to tell you why he thinks that Juanita Broderick was not a credible witness.
Okay.
All right, don't go too hard on him.
I'm not going too hard on him.
Oh, no, I'm just messing with you.
I'm just saying, that, oh, shoot. Hang on a minute.
All right.
All right. I am back now.
All right.
I am back now. Now.
Okay, we got a minute and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. This is it.
All right, we're back in 10 seconds.
Eight 927-6691 gets you through to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells, and Juanita Broderick is the subject of Ray's call, who's calling us from Plano, Texas. Listens on 1160 AM KBDT. Ray, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What was your comment regarding Juanita Broderick?
You mentioned earlier that you felt like she was a credible witness. I've listened to her, testify and make statements with regard to the actions that took place with Bill Clinton,
Mhm.
and I thought she came across as anything but credible. By her
Well,
own words.
what I said is that she was a witness, and what I have said many, many times was there is no real evidence. But that doesn't mean that she wasn't a credible witness. As far as that, I mean, that's such a subjective point. That's what I'm discussing here. To you,
I know
Juanita,
that's what I'm commenting on.
yeah, Juanita Broderick is not a credible witness to you, right? And she may
By
not
her
be.
own words.
Well, she may not be. Well, not by her own words, by your
No,
belief.
absolutely by her own words.
No, by your belief in her words or not. Her own words are as credible as anybody's words at any given moment. Just that you don't believe them doesn't mean that they're credible or not to anybody else. They just aren't
I
credible.
think
They're just not credible
there's
to
a
you.
value judgment that you make. There's a value judgment that you make with regard to witness testimony. I've been on juries, and that
Yeah.
is what you do even on a jury.
Okay, I get that, but
Okay.
what if people disagree with you, Ray? There are a lot of people that believe that Juanita Broderick is all the credible witness she needs to be able to prove that she was raped by Bill Clinton.
Yes, that's what she may say. But I'm just saying, if you want to discuss why Roy Moore was not believed and why Juanita Broderick shouldn't have been believed, then it's the way they answer the questions.
The point is, Ray, is that the reason that Roy Moore wasn't believed and that Bill Clinton was believed is because Roy Moore is a Republican and President Clinton is a Democrat, protected by the mainstream media, and Roy Moore isn't. That's the reason. The reason that all the people that testified against Roy Moore are credible and that Juanita Broderick isn't credible doesn't have anything to do with Juanita Broderick's testimony. It has to do with the fact that she's testifying against a Democrat. Now, this is not a partisan statement. This is the news. I am telling you what is. I'm not telling you that that's the way it is. I'm just telling you that these are the facts. The facts are Roy Moore is a Republican. All of the people that came out against Roy Moore, even those that were proven to have forged documents, are somehow more believed than Juanita Broderick was. And that is not about partisan politics. That's the news. So it is credible, or it isn't, because it's all subjective. Theoretically, the testimony of 19 women, credible women, would be enough to remove a president from office without any proof, without any due process. In fact, because our framers of our Constitution did not actually fully flesh out what high crimes and misdemeanors were, then somebody saying, well, he eats small children at night after a bizarre religious ritual, right? He does? Oh, absolutely he does. Will you swear to that in court? Yes. That's enough to get somebody impeached?
All right, sir. Has Ray been a caller for a while now?
Yeah, Ray's, he's just,
I don't think you and Ray probably won't ever agree on anything.
I know. Oh, but he's so easy.
Yeah. Well, all right, sir. We got about 6 minutes here.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to run to the restroom. I'll be back in a minute.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, we're back in 1 minute.
All right.
All right, here we go in 10 seconds.
North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. How are you doing? Did you have a wonderful Christmas? Did you celebrate Christmas? First of all, if you did, fantastic. If you did not celebrate Christmas, I hope you're enjoying the end of the year and the joyous and glorious fun that it is to be able to drive on the highways and freeways of America without being immediately just inured in a giant traffic jam. I have to tell you, I'm looking at two of the major arteries here in Dallas, Texas, and they're moving along really, really well. I drove to work today. Guess how long it took me to drive from my house in North Fort Worth, which is roughly 45 miles. It took me 38 minutes. Oh my goodness, he was speeding then, wasn't he? You bet you I was. Yeah, I was speeding. That's true. There's no doubt about it. But anyway, that being said, you know, for all the years that I have spent on this traffic, in this traffic, you know, taking an hour and a half to get here or an hour and 15 minutes to get home, there you go. Okay. Hey, by the way, wanted to let you know something that was going on here. There's a bulletin. Governor Chris Christie has signed an order allowing New Jersey residents to prepay their state taxes. They have state income taxes. This is really good, by the way. This is brilliant. They have state income taxes, which means that you can prepay your taxes in the Garden State, and therefore you can itemize them, you can deduct them from your taxes for 2017. So you don't lose that first year of state taxes. Now, you used to be able to deduct those as a matter of course. Well, because of the Trump tax cuts, that deduction has gone the way of all things. But Republican governors and Democrat governors, except of course for I think for Jerry Brown, he probably won't do it because the objective of living in California is to take all your money. Anyway, that being said, you're going to be able to, if you know somebody in New Jersey, tell them that Chris Christie has made it so that you can go ahead and deduct your state taxes for 2017. There you have it. Okay. More pregnant women, according to Jacqueline Howard of CNN, more pregnant women seem to be using pot, sometimes to ease the nausea of morning sickness or heightened anxiety. A new study suggests this slight rise in marijuana use is among the most pronounced among younger people in the United States. The prevalence of marijuana use among a sample of moms-to-be in California climbed from 4.2% to 7.1% from 2009 to 2016. Among pregnant teens younger than 18, marijuana use climbed from 12.5% to 21.8%. And among women 18 to 24, marijuana use climbed from 9.8% to 19%. The research involved only certain women in California, but a separate study of pregnant women across the United States, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association in January, found those reported using marijuana in the previous month grew from 2.37% in 2002 to 3.85% in 2014. Those women were 18 to 24. Doctors caution the health effects of marijuana on a fetus remain unclear, but could include low birth weight and developmental problems, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Many of the chemicals in marijuana, like tetrahydrocannabinol, known as THC, can pass through a mother's blood system into her baby's blood system. The American Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists recommends that women who are pregnant or contemplating pregnancy should be encouraged to discontinue marijuana use and to discontinue use of marijuana for medicinal purposes in favor of an alternative therapy. Additionally, there is insufficient data to evaluate the effects of marijuana use on infants during lactation and breastfeeding, and in the absence of such data, marijuana use is discouraged. A new study suggests this slight rise in marijuana use, it's a slight rise because Jacqueline Howard writes for CNN, but it's actually more like the use of marijuana has doubled among pregnant women in not one but two studies. But it's just a slight rise, even though the number of women who smoke marijuana when they're pregnant doubles. I mean, it's just a small thing. It's no big deal. You don't need to worry about this. Don't fret it. Right. Are you going to be paying for these kids down the line because they have trouble balancing a checkbook? I don't know. And neither does anybody else. But why not take a chance with the kids anyway? So the reason that the women are taking these or using marijuana is to ease nausea from morning sickness and anxiety about being pregnant. What would they be anxious about? Well, their baby might not be healthy. I know, I'll go smoke marijuana so that I can not worry about my baby not being healthy. Okay. And of course, there's the ever-present relief of nausea. Do we have any idea, by the way, that tetrahydrocannabinol actually does ease nausea? No, nobody's actually done any testing on it. Oh, so again, we're taking a chance on our kids simply because we've heard that it eases nausea. Oh yeah, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. Yeah, all those. Well, there's no reason for big pharmaceutical companies to allow marijuana into the workplace because it is the absolute be all end all for all maladies. It's a panacea. It's the most amazing drug in the history of human beings. Does everything. Okay, if you say so. The new research involved 279,457 mothers-to-be, 12 years of age and over. 12 years of age and over? I'm sorry. Isn't that child rape? Anyway, the research involved 279,457 mothers-to-be, 12 years of age and older, who were in the Kaiser Permanente Northern California healthcare system. The study participants completed questionnaires about their marijuana use and took a cannabis toxicology test during their standard prenatal care visits from 2009 to 2016. The women were screened for marijuana use at approximately 8 weeks gestation. The research found the prevalence of marijuana use based on self-reports in toxicology soared among all age groups. The biggest rise was among those 24 and younger. We were concerned to find the prevalence of marijuana use in pregnancy increased more quickly among younger females aged 24 and younger, and to see the high prevalence of use in this age group, the study's lead author, Kelly Young Wolf, licensed clinical psychologist and research scientist at Kaiser Permanente Northern California Division of Research. For other age groups, the researchers found that marijuana use rose from 3.4% to 5.1% among women 25 to 34, and from 2.1% to 3.3% among women older than 34. So, are we seeing a prevalence of women who just don't care about their babies to the point where they'll just smoke marijuana because they feel like it, or because it has some sort of anecdotal healing properties, or it helps them with their anxiety? What's going on? What's happening here? Has the women's movement been successful enough, finally, after all these years, so that women do see their children, their unborn children, as enemies? Is that where we finally are, thanks to the women's movement, thanks to the liberal mainstream media, thanks to all of this? We finally succeeded in turning the unborn child in the belly of a particular woman, or any woman, into public enemy number one. Is that what we've done here? Do women actually want to have children anymore, or do they just not want to? I mean, is it a good thing that we've essentially changed female sexuality from being, say, for example, the selector of males who are mated with, into essentially living a male analog of a sex life? Hey, if you like him, go after it. Is that where we are? Used to be that women were kind of choosy about who they would have a baby with. Now, it doesn't make any difference who it is. We're not having babies. Okay. All right. So has all of this social engineering over the years since the 70s, the pill, making women absolutely responsible for the reproductive efforts of society, except, of course, when it comes to saying no, that responsibility is somebody else's responsibility. In other words, women have to have free access to birth control pills from the government, or some sort of birth control. They have to have free access to birth control, because that's not, they're not responsible for going to bed with people. They should be able to go to bed with anybody they want to, anytime they want to, and somebody else needs to pay for the birth control. Or are we in a situation where obviously the baby, the unborn baby, is the enemy? I'm just trying to understand. You know, I'm trying to figure out just exactly, you know, what's going to happen, whether or not I'm going to ever have grandchildren, for example. I got 4 sons. Can't have grandchildren. Don't have grandchildren yet. Okay. I do happen to notice that my nieces have had children, but my nephews haven't had children. My sons haven't had children. Are they unworthy of having children with? This is the Wells Report.
All right, man. You got about 2.5 minutes, and
Thank you.
Mike Reno wanted to talk about the pregnancy.
Okay.
So I got a. So I'm into World War II history and stuff now.
Oh, are you?
And
Very
I'm
cool.
Super big into World War II history, and especially like European war stuff, and because I had family that were in over there and stuff. But I got my girlfriend knows this because I watch all this stuff all the time on History Channel and all this other stuff. And so for Christmas, she got me this DVD of like World War II in HD, some DVDs. I guess she saw me about to buy it one day, and I didn't buy it, and she went back and bought it.
That's very cool.
And then her granddad gave me a crate from somebody in their family, like this big
Yeah.
crate that somebody in their family used when they were in the war. It's like this army crate that was shipped over there and shipped back. It's pretty neat. It's really old, but so you can't really use it that much. But it's got all the markings on it and stuff. Like it's pretty cool.
That is cool, man.
Yeah. All the World War II veterans about to die off, man, and there's
Yep.
not gonna be anybody left to talk about it. All right, back in 10 seconds.
Eight four four 927-6691 gets you through to the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. Let's get to Mike in Reno, listening on the Nevada News Network on 1400 AM in Reno. Mike, thanks very much for being a part of the broadcast. Hi.
Hi, I just tuned into your show. You are absolutely right, absolutely brilliant. We're anti-life. The baby is the enemy of the woman, and she has sole jurisdiction on whether it lives or dies. You are absolutely right. I've never heard it said better. And as far as marijuana, I voted against it here in Nevada, but Nevada has a lot of quote libertarians who I think are idiots.
It is the dumbest thing. It is the dumbest thing ever. And regardless of whether you think marijuana ought to be legal or not, here is what proves Mike's point. Hang on, Mike. I'm not done with you yet. This is what proves Mike's point. It says right there in that article that nobody knows what the effects of THC happens to be on an unborn baby, and yet more people than ever, more pregnant women than ever, are smoking marijuana, and we don't know. Well, it seems to me before we make something legal, we should have some idea of how much THC should be in your system before you are impaired. How much THC should be in your system before you're poisoning your child. We should know these things.
And as far as the drugs, you're familiar with the opium wars in China.
Yes.
The British forced the Chinese to
Sure.
take opium because of the trade imbalance from India, Pakistan, which was one country then, over the tea imbalance. They fought 3 short wars, forced them, and it lasted 100 years. You want to destroy a country, you feed them drugs. Whoever's behind this promotion of marijuana, we're done. The only correction I would make with you is women. Muslim women and Muslims, this is all part of the Muslim conquest of the West. They're not into this. They control their women. They have polygamy, and it's over for the West. I have to quote again for you the ancient Roman saying. I know I go a little further than you. When women think they're equal, they will rule.
Well, let me put it this way, Mike. I appreciate your point of view, except that I think it swings way too far the other way. I think that circumstances are conspiring to put women in a position that they don't want to be in. There were times when in America, not long ago, that pregnancies were absolutely celebrated. I celebrated the pregnancy that led to my first son, and my second and my third and my fourth. Celebrated it because I had been through the anxiety and the concern and all of that. I had been through all of that. I had made it. I understood it. My mother looked me right in the face and said, "Are you going to have kids?" And I said, "I don't know." She says, "Well, you need to." And I said, "Why?" "Because it will make you into a man." And she was right. Absolutely correct. I cannot imagine. I don't even think I would be here. I don't think I would be here if I didn't have kids. And the reason is because I would have been racing cars at insanely fast miles per hour. I really would have. And I probably would have had accidents, and I may have survived those accidents or not. But I will tell you that I think about what my life would be like. I get calls from my sons, and I sit back and I think about how we raised them and how their discoveries were made in front of me, and I laughed and I cried, and it was just as great a human experience as possible. There isn't anything better. Isn't anything better. And I think about what would have happened if I hadn't had kids. I would have had a nonstop selection of cool clothing and fast cars, and I would have not even cared about responsibilities that truly turned me into a man. Standing tall in the face of serious difficulties based on the fact that you had a family to support. We used to celebrate our women for giving us these children. We gave them jewelry and love and caring and so on and so forth. Now what do? Well, we send them to work so that they can help pay the bills. And that's not anti-female. That's anti-male. We'll talk about that someday too. You're listening to the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network.
All right, man. I see you take him off when he was saying that. When women are.
Well, yeah, I mean, when women think they're equal, they will rule. Well,
Yeah, he's kind of extreme now.
yeah, okay.
He's kind of.
Whatever.
He's kind of extreme on that one, but.
Okay. Do, 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 do.
You never know which way that mic guy's gonna swing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I didn't want to talk to him. I mean, it was
No,
like, really?
I mean,
Seriously?
No, you know, you could count. You know, it's always gonna go too far, but you never know like which way.
Yes.
That's crazy about the women, man.
Wow. Okay. Let's get rid of that. Let's get, oh no. That was wrong. What did I do that for? Okay. Let me get rid of this. Yeah. Once again. Let's see, force quits. Male. Force quits. Okay. That was really weird.
Wow,
Well, my computer just quit working.
really?
Yeah. So now I have to go back. To Safari. Open a new window. Thank you. Go to Facebook. Go to there. Click on that. Good. Let's see, put this over here. All right. There you go. Let's see here. Even with one daughter parentally cranky, still a joy that she gave me 3 grandsons. Wish my single daughter and married son could hear JD. Well, I love you too, Ms. Candace Lamb. Let's see here. Let me get to this and get to this and get to this. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
I'm back in 1 minute.
1 freaking minute. There you go. Okay. All right.
Here we go. 10 seconds.
You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Thank you for being a part of this broadcast. You can do so anytime you choose. All you got to do is go to 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. All right. Couple of things here. Sheila Jackson Lee was escorted onto a United Airlines flight the other day and seated in first class. She has been described by Daniel Greenfield in the pages of frontpagemag.com as a civil rights hero and a freed slave. The article's author, Daniel Greenfield, believes that Sheila Jackson Lee thinks that slavery ended in the 60s. She also believes that she is entitled to other people's airline seats. A passenger on a flight from Houston to Washington, D.C., accused United Airlines of giving her first-class seat to U.S. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Houston, and then threatening to remove her from the plane for complaining and snapping a photo of the Houston Congresswoman. Jean Marie Simon, a 63-year-old attorney and private school teacher, used 140,000 travel miles to upgrade to a first-class seat to take her from Washington, D.C. to Guatemala and back home. Her seat, 1A, was taken by Sheila Jackson Lee, the Congresswoman from Houston, Texas. Actually, that's really kind of underdoing it, because whenever she is introduced, someone else introduces her as the Congresswoman. It's really quite embarrassing. Simon was given a $500 voucher and reseated in row 11, Economy Plus. Yeah. Simon said she saw Jackson Lee board the plane with a flight attendant before all the other passengers, did not know that she was or who she was until another passenger told her after they were seated. 5 minutes after Simon took the photo on the plane, another flight attendant sat next to her and said if she was going to be a problem. What? The airline announced policy changes after an incident where Oscar Munoz had promised a culture shift. The CEO of the airline, Oscar Munoz, had promised a culture shift toward becoming a better, more customer-focused airlines. Anyway, Sheila Jackson Lee had kind of a statement to make. Since this was not any fault of mine, the way the individual continued to act appeared to be on reflection because I was an African-American woman, seemingly an easy target, along with the African-American flight attendant who was, let me turn the page here, who was very, very nice. This saddens me, especially at the time of year, given all the things we have to work on to help people. But in the spirit of the season, out of the sincerity of my heart, if it's perceived that I had anything to do with this, I am kind enough to simply say sorry. There is a problem. The woman that Sheila Jackson Lee accused of racism is a celebrated photojournalist who has helped document human rights abuses in war-torn Guatemala during the 1980s. Jean Marie Simon, whose first-class seat was taken by the Congresswoman, had worked and lived in Guatemala during the turbulent decade that saw the military seize control of the government in a coup. Hundreds of thousands of Guatemalans were killed or disappeared during that conflict. And of course, Ms. Simon was then immediately referred to by Sheila Jackson Lee as a racist because she was given her seat and she actually was upset about it. The airline has yet to apologize. The United States of America, the government of the United States of America, is very, very slowly becoming something very, very ugly and very, very bad when the people of the United States are quite literally being forced to take a back seat to government workers, employees of We the People. I want to make this plain. Sheila Jackson Lee, regardless of what she may think of herself, works for us, not the other way around. Do I believe that this was her fault? No. No, it wasn't her fault. It was the fault of United Airlines, which gives us another reason to never fly United Airlines again. But that being said, we now have a circumstance in hand where, where we know for a fact. I mean, if I had been a congressperson, I wouldn't take anybody's seat. Not at all. I just wouldn't do it. Tony Miller has made a comment, and I would read it if it wasn't absolutely impossible to read, not just on the air on the USA Radio Network, but anywhere in public. Tony, smack yourself. Oh yeah, by the way, there are people that have my cell phone, and they will listen, and they will indeed text me during their broadcast making snide comments about either something I've said or about somebody that I'm talking about or what have you. At some point, I may have a number that is strictly for text interaction as soon as I'm rich, if that ever happens. Congress has instructed the Department of Justice to turn over all documents and communications that may be related to newly disclosed efforts by the Obama administration to handicap an investigation into the terror group Hezbollah and its Iranian benefactors. This, according to a letter sent to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, obtained by the Washington Free Beacon. The letter represents the first salvo in a new investigation by congressional leaders into allegations senior Obama administration officials thwarted a decade-long drug enforcement agency investigation into Hezbollah's illicit operations. The Obama administration and what congressional lead insiders described to the Free Beacon as a, quote, potentially criminal enterprise, unquote, interfered with the DEA's investigation into Hezbollah's drug activities in order to avoid angering the terror group's chief patron, Iran, and preserve the landmark nuclear deal that has been touted by the Obama administration as his signature foreign policy achievement. Hezbollah is a brutal terrorist group with American blood on its hands, and it would be unconscionable for American policy to deliberately empower such a nefarious group, said Republican Representative Ron DeSantis. There is more. From its inception, two things about special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation were clear. Mueller's investigation, sorry, not Robert Mueller's investigation, were clear. First, the White House's biggest concern that Mueller would follow the money, and second, that Mueller is following the money. Can you hear the bias in Betsy Woodruff's latest work? Yeah. Trump's lawyers have long said they expected the probe to stay focused and end quickly. Instead, Mueller has assembled a team of prosecutors with expertise in handling financial investigations and white-collar crime involving Republicans and obtaining guilty pleas for crimes that weren't committed during the election year. Okay, I put the Republican part in there. Most importantly, he's sending a thinly veiled warning to the White House: no one's finances are off limits. If 2017 had the president's inner circle sweating, 2018 could feel like a sauna. And besides, it's only fair that everybody have every idea of what is the financial circumstances surrounding President Trump. I mean, look at the fact that President Obama's finances have always been an open book. You've always been able to tell where President Obama's money has come from, regardless of whether or not, I mean, well, that's crap. We don't know where President Obama's money has come from. We just know he has it. Okay. Anytime federal prosecutors want to charge somebody with breaking tax law, they have to get approval from the Justice Department's tax division. That approval process can be time-consuming, and the would-be defendants' attorneys often can petition tax division lawyers against authorizing the charges. Following the money, it turns out, can be circuitous. Mueller has been working with IRS and criminal investigators, as the Daily Beast first reported in August. Those agents specialize solely in financial crimes with a tax nexus. Their cooperation was an early indicator that money mattered to Mueller. The reason all this is coming down is because Manafort may be the subject, Paul Manafort may be the subject again of more indictments from the Mueller investigation. This is all referring to things that Manafort did before he became a part of the Trump campaign or transition or administration. But we are seeing all of this immediately tied to, you got it, President Trump. Right. Follow the money. What does the what does the mainstream media say about all of this? Well, according to the Washington Post, glad you asked, Carl Bernstein says President Trump's presidency is tainted and the FBI is not. Obviously, Carl Bernstein forgot how to read his own newspaper that he used to work with back in the 70s. He can't read it any longer because of, I don't know what happened, but whatever. Mueller would like to get Trump's scalp, said Louis Gohmert. Famed Watergate reporter Carl Bernstein blasted President Trump in a CNN interview after the president tweeted the Trump-Russia dossier was a pile of garbage. Trump took to Twitter to repeat the Steele dossier, which was compiled following funding from the DNC. It remains unverified. But once again, the people talking about it are credible. Is that right? As long as the people talking about it are credible, then it has to be true. Is that correct? And then there's this. Congressional investigators are heading into 2018 with no immediate end in sight to their probes into Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election and possible collusion with the Trump campaign. Aaron Kelly, Kevin Johnson, writing for USA Today. Every time the Senate Intelligence Committee interviews a witness, said its chairman, Richard Burr, the Republican from North Carolina, it learns the names of more people to question. The committee has interviewed more than 100 people since its investigation began in January. Every individual that is added, it puts about 3 more weeks into the investigation. So that's why it makes it difficult for me to look out, Burr said at the Council on Foreign Relations this month, adding the revelations in news stories have also contributed to the long witness list. Senator Adam Schiff of California, the senior Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, told USA Today he believes the House panel still has many months of work ahead of us. He added, however, that he's worried about the Republicans on the committee trying to rush the investigation into a premature close because of pressure from the White House to bring it to an end. Yeah. There was a guy earlier today that said that it was horrifying the president was considering taking out Robert Mueller. You know what? The president has not considered it. He fired James Comey because James Comey circumvented the chain of command in the FBI and bollocksed up a very important investigation. He should have been fired. Robert Mueller has done nothing of the kind. I'll tell you what I mean in a moment. You're listening to the Wells Report, the USA Radio Network.
All right, man. Sounded good.
Thank you. Oh, okay. What? Arletta Jordan loves me in a non-sexual harassment way. Me too, you. Let's see. You're right on, JD. Look forward to that anti-male discussion. Yeah. Yep. It starts out with, I consider myself a failure as a man. That's how it starts. Oh, yeah. Oh, goodness. Oh. Mm.
Back in 1 minute. All right, here we go. 10 seconds.
Ready, buddy. Eight four four 927-6691 will get you through to this broadcast. I'm John David Wells, waiting for your call. The Russia investigations, no end in sight for Congress, according to Robert Mueller. Well, there needs to be. Not because the job should be left undone, but there are other jobs that should be done. For example, there are articles of impeachment that have been considered in the Congress of the United States. One of the articles of impeachment was obstruction of justice. Now, I realize that President Obama is no longer in office, therefore he cannot be impeached. But I have to say that there's a big problem with a lot of what's going on in the United States government, especially where presidential politics are concerned. And I happen to believe that at some point, it's time to start telling the truth and start to clean this mess up. It's not good enough to just sweep it under the rug and say, well, you know what? We did the best we could. Sorry, that's not good enough. The simple case of it is, we need the truth. Post haste. We need the truth. And the reason we need the truth is because we'll never be able to clean up the mess until we have it. The truth is the anti-corruption agent. It is a reason. It gives a reason. It gives a basis for logic. It gives a basis for analysis. That isn't just something that's run on based on somebody's subjective idea of who's credible and who isn't. There has to be proof. There has to be due process. There has to be reality. In absence of any of those things, there is no crime. And when it comes to no crime, what you're talking about is a true tragedy, because there are women who have been manhandled and assaulted. They have been hurt, damaged. And if they are not heard because they're afraid that somebody's going to ridicule them, why would somebody ridicule a story that was credible? Well, because there have been so many incredible stories that have been followed up on, talked about, debated on television, discussed on Sunday shows. And just don't mean that much. So, since they just don't mean that much, that taints the stories that do mean a great deal. And that's the tragedy of all of this. That's why lying for effect is lying. That's why corruption is corruption. And truth will indeed set us free.
All right, man. Got about 6 minutes or so.
Okay, I'll be right back.
So we got just over a minute. I'm back in 30 seconds. Here we go.
North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. 844-927-6691 is our telephone number. So join us. What'd you get for Christmas? Did you get something good for Christmas? I got lots of good things for Christmas. Guess what I got for Christmas? I got a very, very cool radio. I collect old radios. And I got, let me see if I can bring it up here. I got a very Tony Miller. You gotta meet Tony Miller. Tony Miller is one of the funniest human beings in the history of people. He's just hysterically funny. I'm so lucky. I am so lucky he's my friend. I mean, have you ever you've had a friend that is without doubt just a pure joy to be around? Tony Miller. I'm telling you, man. Telephone number is once again, it's 844-927-6691. So what I'm doing is I'm looking up this radio so that you know what radio this thing is, so you'll understand that I really was very, very lucky to get it. I got it from a guy named Rob. And it is from 1938. It is a Zenith model 5S317. Now, it was originally put together. It's a kind of a famous radio. It was put together for the New York World's Fair in 1939. And it is perhaps, I mean, it's a radio that you've seen before. It has like what looks like a turret with glass rods that were installed in it. And it is a very good radio and it works. So it is one of the ones in my collection that I truly value and truly appreciate. And so I got that radio, and it was really, really cool because these radios are a lot better than the ones that we get now, especially for AM. And if you happen to be somebody like me, and you listen to, and you're a devotee of radio history, you're a radio historian, if you will. What I think is kind of cool is that the radios sound much different. AM is pretty much the same. The broadcasting is pretty much the same, but the radios are not nearly good enough to be able to pull in everything that AM can really give you unless you have one of these older radios. And like I said, I'll never forget the time that I was listening to my voice on a 1937 Philco remote control radio. And that big radio sound that you hear of so often. Let's see, somebody's asking me, Ms. Eve is asking me if I'm going to show a picture on the website, or not the website, but the But whether I'm going to show one on the television show, no, but I will put the model number on the website so you can look it up yourself. Zenith 5-S-317. Anyway, I'm very, very happy to. One of these days, you may see it in the background, but it's a very, very cool radio. And so I got that. And I want to thank my beloved wife and my son and all of my family members and friends for giving me such a beautiful Christmas season. And I hope you had one too. President Trump is looking for his next year. He is looking for his next accomplishment, finishing 2017, even though it's not really finished yet, but finishing 2017 with a very, very good uplifting win when it came to the tax plan. He's looking ahead to a critical election year. His record is going to be on the ballot along with Republican lawmakers. He is working on trying to come up with an infrastructure bill. Before leaving his Florida estate for the holiday, Trump predicted his effort to repair the country's roads, airports, and bridges would garner bipartisan support with ease. The way this is going to work is very simple. The way it's going to work is that indeed the president will find bipartisan support for an infrastructure bill. What he's going to have trouble with is limiting it based on what the Democrats are going to want to spend. Because one thing about an infrastructure bill, and I have to sneeze. Well, that was a good one. Anyway, the one thing about an infrastructure bill is that there's an awful lot of pork in it. Pork barrel politics. And pork barrel politics means that lots and lots of money is going to get spent. The Democrat Party will want to spend more than the $200 billion that President Trump wants to spend. And then, of course, what will happen after President Trump will, in some way, in a bipartisan fashion, work his way into spending more money than he wants to. What will end up happening is that the Democrats will castigate him for spending too much money on the infrastructure bill, and of course the mainstream media will go along with it, and they'll and mark my words, just write it down. The gigantic sin of 2018 for the Trump administration will be spending too much money. Not that it made any difference whatsoever in the first 2 years of the Trump administration, but then again, who cares? I mean, when it really gets right down to it, when Democrats spend money, it's a good thing. When Republicans spend money, it's an irresponsible thing. So there you go. So that's what's going to happen. So what do you hope the president is able to fix? I have a few ideas as to what I'd like to see fixed in the United States. You see, I happen to believe that the federal government is very good at big, dumb, simple things. Big, dumb, simple things. Specifically, hi, I'm not available right now. I'll try to call you back. How about that? Thanks for calling. Anyway, I happen to believe the federal government is very good at big, dumb, simple things. For example, the Colorado River destroys Western America once every 100 years or so with floods and devastation. So let's put a couple of dams in the Colorado River and create not just a taming of that river, but let's also use the water for the replenishment of Southern California. Thus, the California Aqueduct, the Boulder Dam, the Glen Canyon Dam, Lake Mead, and some of those other, the lake behind Glen Canyon Dam, which is Lake Titicaca. That's not it. What is the, no, it's Lake, oh, I almost had it. It's not Lake Mead, it's Lake, come on, look it up. What's the lake behind the Glen Canyon Dam? See, the executive producer of the broadcast, Philip Brown, likes to see me twist in the wind from time to time. Well, you should have looked this up before you started talking about it, John David. Yes, I should have. Lake Powell. That's it. Yes, Lake Powell for Phoenix, Lake Mead for Southern California. Anyway, big dumb things, and it worked like a charm. Another big dumb thing. Let's put highways coast to coast in America so that people can drive across America and not ever stop at a stoplight. And the interstate highway system was born. That was a Dwight D. Eisenhower deal. Very, very good. Smart move. We've been driving on those freeways for a long time. The basic design of an interstate, 2 lanes going one direction and 2 lanes going the other, has been pretty good. It's not good enough now because the country has grown. But you got to keep in mind, it's also been 67 years since we started the Interstate Highway Program. 67 years. The country has grown. People drive more cars than they used to. And yet that highway system has held up pretty well. But there is a problem that I really hope that America fixes at some point. And people laugh at me when I bring this up. Okay, but I'm going to bring it up one more time. I'm going to bring it one, and I'll let the Philip Brown, the executive producer of this broadcast, he's never heard me talk about this before. Okay? We live life in the post 9/11 world. We live life in a world where horrific attacks can occur, the likes of which human beings have never seen before, ever. For example, not just nation states with huge intercontinental ballistic missiles, but rogue nation states with intercontinental ballistic missiles and nuclear warheads. Terrorists with access to chemical weapons and biological weapons. Terrorists who are working as much as they possibly can to achieve being a nuclear power. ISIS would love to be a nuclear power. Al-Qaeda wanted to be a nuclear power. But we live in a world where the possibility of a major metropolitan area being attacked in a way that would be cataclysmic is something that we live with pretty much every day. We don't talk about it much. We'd rather talk about gigantic asteroids coming out of the sky and hitting the earth. That's what killed the dinosaurs. Yeah, they'd rather talk about that than talk about what could actually happen. And I suppose that talking about this is not something that you really want to do. But there is something that we, the people of the United States, need to fix in this country based on the fact that our cities are vulnerable. Our cities are actually easily considered to be death traps for everybody living in them. What am I talking about? What is the remedy? Well, it's as big as the interstate highway system, building that. It is something that we need to do. And I will tell you what it is coming up in a moment. Don't go anywhere because I want you to tell me if I'm nuts. I don't want you to tell me whether it's doable. I want you to tell me whether I'm completely nuts. Next on the Wells Report.
All right, man. Moving on to last report.
Great. No, just watching all of this. Google your first name followed by Marvel Comics. Then post the character that you get. What? Comics Explained. Google your first name followed by Marvel Comics. Google your first name. Okay. Let me Google my first name, John David. Marvel. Yeah. That doesn't make sense. John David Casey. Huh. Okay. That didn't work. Good. I'm glad I wasted that. This doesn't work. All right. Don't mess with Ted Cruz unless you want a Twitter beating. I'm a queen and I demand to be treated like a queen. Sheila Jackson Lee. Wow.
All right, back in 30 seconds.
30 dang seconds. Obama campaign paid $972,000 to the law firm that paid Fusion GPS. This, according to the Federalist. We need to get Sean, what's his face on it?
All right, here we go in 10.
Eight 844-927-6691. We'll get you through to the Wells Report. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to listen very carefully. There is a huge infrastructure project we should undertake in the United States. What it basically involves is this. It involves super freeways being built in the middle of our largest American cities. And you're going, what? Super freeways. These are freeways that are a minimum of 10 lanes on each side that run north and south where practical, and whichever direction makes most sense if not practical. Say, for example, if you happen to be in a coastal city, right, like Houston, it may make sense to run the highways, say, for example, northwest and northeast, because you're on the ocean, basically. You're pinned against the ocean. But what you have to do is you have to go out a minimum of 75 to 100 miles with these 10-lane freeways. And then what you have to do is you have to be able to contraflow those freeways. In other words, you have to be able to use, say, for example, let's say 16 lanes, one direction, 4 lanes the other way in, or 18 lanes out, 2 lanes in. And what would you use those for? Evacuating a city, an entire city. You should be able to evacuate an entire city, and I'm talking about a major metro. I'm talking about Chicago and Philadelphia and New York, which is going to be tough. You should be able to evacuate those cities in 72 hours. You don't do it with trains. You don't do it with buses. You do it with people in their own cars getting out of town. When Hurricane Rita hit Houston, my parents got on Highway 45 to try to get out of town. They spent 18 hours on the road, 18 hours on Interstate 45. And by the way, Interstate 45 is huge. But it gets to the edge of town and gets narrowed down to 3 or 4 lanes. And by the way, Houston has actually done something about this. Houston actually did build what I'm talking about. My parents got on the road to evacuate Hurricane Rita. And in 18 hours, how far do you think they went? That's right, 2 miles. Because Dad was brilliant about buying houses in the right places, they were able to weather the storm, and all was well. But think about that, spending 18 hours on a highway and moving 2 miles. That's a day and a half, or actually, it's basically 2/3. It's 2/3 of a day. And since you have to go about 50 miles to get out of Houston, how many days would it take you at 2 miles a pop? Now remember, everybody was on the road. That's why they couldn't move. If indeed someone, and perish the thought that this ever happens, but if someone is able to smuggle a nuclear device into one of our biggest cities, you will have plenty of people that lose their lives at the beginning. But how many people will lose their lives trying to get out of the town, actually get out of the city? More people will lose their lives trying to leave than probably lost their lives in the original blast. When you start thinking about death tolls in that vicinity, the synergistic effects become apocalyptic. Now I realize this is something that people haven't really thought that much about. But to me, it is the hanging curveball of infrastructure work projects. We need super freeways getting out of towns like Chicago and LA and Detroit so that people can save themselves. What do you think?
All right, man.
So you think I'm nuts?
No, I think they probably do need to do. I need to do something like that instead of waiting for the last minute. They need to do something about it now so that we don't have to do it at the last minute.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, so they don't have to be like, oh, everybody evacuate. How are we gonna do it?
Ugh, goodness gracious.
Because it seems like it's always a problem whenever when we had the network in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Raleigh's not on the coast, but there was a hurricane evacuation route that went through where I live.
Right.
But it wasn't any big. It wasn't a very big road or anything. It was just like a regular neighborhood road.
Right.
So yeah, they definitely could come up with some better ones.
Yeah, we really have to do it.
I think there's a lot of stuff like that we're probably behind on as a nation.
We truly are. We're making huge mistakes. It is a huge error.
And probably the only reason that we've been doing all right so far is because our nation's so young anyway. And we were doing really good when we started, and now we're kind of falling behind.
Yeah. So you think I'm nuts? Phil, is that stupid?
I think they need to work on making better power grids and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, but that can be handled by private industry.
Okay.
You can't handle that. You can't handle that. I mean, you can handle that just any government. I mean, any real utility can do that. They can do that themselves.
Well, they just need to. We need to do it however they need to do it. We need to do it because
I agree.
Because all the stuff that happened with the Chinese. I think it was the Chinese that hacked into one of our
Yep.
grid things. All right, we're back in 30 seconds.
30 dang seconds.
All right, here we go.
Eight 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. So do you think I'm nuts? Super freeways getting out of American major metropolitan areas? Not only would it help the actual traffic problems in any given city, because with careful use of, say, for example, existing places, existing freeways, You could do this. This could be done, but it requires federal involvement. The reason that we have the interstate highway system is so that we could move military units, materiel, so on and so forth across the country quickly. The benefit, of course, was that Americans could move themselves across the country quickly. There are other countries that have this same kind of idea, but they copied it from the United States. In Russia, they use trains, not freeways. Now, those would be, I mean, the country is twice, almost 2.5 times as large as the United States. That would be an amazing public works project to build the freeways necessary to be able to get from one end of Russia to the other. But in the United States, at some point, people are going to be stuck in these great big cities. I've always found a place to live on the outskirts of all these cities for the exact reason of being able to get out of town. It's like trying to find a house that's outside of the floodplain. You try to find a place that has a lot of good freeways moving in and out of it. In my particular case, I have at least 3 different ways of getting into either Fort Worth or Dallas, depending on what the circumstances are. That's why I picked where I live. And so these are things you have to keep in mind. And I know that this is not something new, but if we're going to talk about public affairs or public works projects, we're going to talk about infrastructure, let's talk about the real need of that infrastructure. And that's something we need. And I hope that I hope that one of these days I don't sit behind this microphone and say, "See, I told you." I wish we had built those super freeways, don't you? Speaking of mass transit, Israel is going to name a new train station after President Donald Trump for his historic and brave decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and move the U.S. Embassy there. The transportation minister in Israel pushes ahead to reward the U.S. president for the historic and brave decision. The project will require a 2-mile tunnel under Jerusalem's old city to be built and will take 4 years or more. The president visited the Western Wall in May as part of a swing through the Middle East that also included Saudi Arabia. The Western Wall is the holiest place in the world for the Jewish people. I decided to name the train station that leads to it after President Trump, following his historic and brave decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel. This according to Transportation Minister Yisrael Katz, telling the Jerusalem Post. The national daily newspaper, Yedioth Ahronoth, was first to report that Katz had approved the final construction plans for the train, which include excavating a 2-mile tunnel from the Uma Nation station at the entrance to the city to the Cardo in the Jewish Quarter. The route will take travelers through downtown Jerusalem and under the politically and historically sensitive Old City. The Western Wall is the holiest site where Jews can pray. Transportation Ministry spokesman Avner Ovadia said today, the project is estimated to cost more than $700 million, and if approved, would take 4 years to complete. I think that's wonderful. I think that's absolutely wonderful. I think that is a brilliant idea. And I think that it's one of the things that will prove to many people, it's one of the accomplishments that Donald Trump will indeed make. that will lead to a completely different story when he is finished being the president than was being told about him when he began as the president. This is one of those things, this is one of these moments in history that proves that our founding fathers, the framers of this nation, were correct in almost everything they came up with. Because when we truly stick to the DNA of the United States, when we have a government that works to the benefit of, for, and by the people of the United States, this country thrives. When this country does not live under those circumstances, it suffers. And these are just simple facts. Again, not partisan. This is the news. When the government of the United States involves itself in things that are better left to the states or private industry or to the people, the country suffers. This president, after a year of frank abuse by the mainstream media, by his political enemies, by even his political friends, this president has been able to keep his eye on what he wants to get done, and he has been focused and straightforward. And the people around him, specifically the Republican Party, have done more to damage themselves than what the president has done to damage himself. The mainstream media has badly screwed up their own image, their own credibility, and it's all because of the unbelievable way that they have reported on this president. It's absolutely inexcusable, in fact, that this is what has happened. And it is sincerely my hope that it stops. Because the president has work to do. To be able to do this work, he has to be allowed to do so without being run over, without being hindered, without being sabotaged. And that sabotage is plain as day to anyone who cares to pay enough attention to see it. President Ronald Reagan had a moment in his presidency that he had earned. It was a moment where he could address the entire world standing before the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin when there were two cities, West Berlin and East Berlin. The famous speech where he spoke to Mikhail Gorbachev and said, "Tear down this wall." That was a seminal moment in human history. It was world history unfolding in front of us. Was it minimized by the mainstream media? Sure. In this country. But it was an unmistakable coup for a president that did quite literally change the face of the planet that he served. I don't know that President Trump is going to be able to live up to something along that line. I know that he had a pretty good year after all was said and done in 2017. There are people who are beginning to realize that this man does have an idea and he does have the support, the honest support of the American people. And he does. The Democrats are counting their chickens long before they're hatched and saying, we have a chance to take over the House of Representatives. Well, if that is indeed the case, that will be a defeat of Republicans, not a defeat of the Trump administration. Because Republicans have done the necessary work to chase themselves from power. Mitch McConnell, for example, Mitch McConnell talks about how when it came to Roy Moore, he'd rather have a Democrat in that seat. And he talked about how much more difficult it was going to be to get the Republican business done, already setting the stage for a failure of Republicans in the Senate, which is exactly what happened in 2006. That's what happened in 2004 to 2006. The American people fired the Republican Party. Will that happen again? I don't know. But if any party in the United States deserves it, it's quite probably the Republican Party that deserves it more, although the Democrat Party has proven itself to be an anti-American force bent on the destruction of the way we do business in America. The Democrat Party is the party of socialism. The Democrat Party is the party of defenselessness before the maelstrom. The maelstrom being the federal government itself. We, the people, know. As we have watched and observed and reported on this nation, we on the Wells Report have noticed that in survey after survey after survey, the American people say that the number one threat to freedom and liberty in the United States is the federal government of the United States. A government of the politicians, for the politicians, by the politicians is not what we do in the United States. The Bill of Rights is under daily assault by the American progressive left, and that is flat un-American. That's the story that needs to be told. That is not the story that will be told because, well, the Republicans don't want to descend to that level of anti-Democrat hate speech. Once again, it's not anti-Democrat hate speech, it's the news. The news of the day is that when it comes to religious freedom, the American left is against it. The proof? The Supreme Court of the United States, looking full into the face of the First Amendment of the Constitution that says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of religion or of the press or of free speech, et cetera, went ahead and redefined marriage, calling into question for all time and all people just exactly what is God's covenant with his people, thereby opening up a possibility to get away from the very foundational aspect that made this nation at the very beginning, which is religious freedom, free speech, all of this. And do I have to bring up the Second Amendment? How the left of America wants to do away with that as well? And the Fourth Amendment? And the Fifth? when you start taking away those very important constitutional amendments, you're starting to take away America. Are you not? This is the Wells Report.
All right, sir, moving along here.
Moving along.
Right on to the last segment.
Yes, sir. I want you to keep those. I want you to keep those. I want you to keep those cuts. Those news cuts.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we'll probably use them tomorrow.
Oh, the ones y'all sent today?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, no sweat. Yeah, I noticed there wasn't a lot. I noticed there wasn't a lot today.
Yeah. Yeah, I sort of spaced it.
No, I mean, like in general.
Yeah.
You know, like there's not a lot out there.
Let's cross one off your list. The newest feature, we need you to kick it off. With new features and apps, this could take a little longer than other. Pick a time. Um, 6 p.m. today.
I hate the way that you buy new tech stuff and then like right after you buy it, they introduce a brand new one that's even better.
Yep.
You know, like I bought a MacBook about a year ago.
Yeah.
And then right after I bought it, they introduced this new one with like that new cool touch bar thing, where you can it's kind of like like a touch thing like the iPhone, but it just goes across. Have you seen it?
No.
The new MacBooks had this new bar that goes across the top of it. That's like touch. It's like a little, basically like a little screen, but it's a strip, and it comes up with like play button, volume buttons, and on there,
Right.
and it's all touch sensitive, and it's really cool. But like what they came out like a week after I bought mine.
Wow.
Yeah, it always happens though, man. It always does.
Yes.
I heard Apple had to decrease a lot of shipments on the iPhone 10 because they're not selling as many as they thought they were.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I heard something about they decreased the amount they're shipping out or something because and that there was a report that came out over the weekend, and that's why their stock dropped a little bit because of this report.
Right.
But yeah, what did you ever end up doing about your phone? Have you not decided yet?
Yeah, I decided.
Oh, okay.
I decided that what I was going to do was I decided that I was going to go ahead and stick with iPhone.
Okay.
Insofar as they're being sued left and right and center
Oh yeah.
by dang near everybody. They're
Yeah,
being,
it's-
I mean, lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, for sabotaging the phones that people already earned or already knew.
There we go.
Yeah. 844-927-6691. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. I have absolutely reveled in the unbelievably highly toned and honed craft of Formula One driver Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is easily one of the greatest drivers in the history of human beings. He is the reigning Formula One champion. He is breathtaking to watch in that he is able to drive better than anybody else on the planet at will. He is in trouble with the internet left, and the reason that he's in trouble is because of something he said to his young nephew. He recently posted a video of his nephew dressed in full-on princess attire. He apparently received the dress, the shoes, and accessories as a Christmas gift. Lewis Hamilton said, quote, "I'm so sad right now. Look at my nephew," unquote. "Why are you wearing a princess dress? Is this what you got for Christmas?" Hamilton asked the boy. The young boy giggles in delight and shakes his head yes in response to his famous uncle. And then Hamilton said, quote, "Boys don't wear princess dresses," unquote. Now, it seems clear while you watch the video that Hamilton is speaking to his nephew in a playful tone. But as you know, the first great loss of anyone who pursues leftist politics is a sense of humor. Leftists who love to showcase their moral goodness by indulging in peals of internet outrage. Beautiful writing, by the way, by Amanda Prestigiacomo, who wrote this article in the Daily Wire. Good for you. Beautiful writing. The keyboard warriors went to town. Lewis Hamilton is trash and should be ashamed for saying that his nephew should indeed not wear princess dresses. Lewis Hamilton, a prime example of that narrow-minded uncle at Christmas who has one too many drinks and thinks his opinion is valid at the family get-together. Nabila said, "Oh, dear Lewis, you just opened a can of worms." I don't care what Lewis's beliefs are. You can't publicly put down a child for innocently liking what they like or wanting what they want, especially when you're an icon and someone who kids look up to, respect, and admire. Any old like me knows that young people are saying the opposite thing to talk to each other, which confuses the olds who don't know better, said Katya. Thank God the real child knows the truth. He's happy. God bless him. I don't care what Lewis's beliefs are. You can't publicly put down a child for innocently liking what they want or wanting what they like and so on and so forth. That was the second read through of that one. People are saying how he's clearly joking, but it's the subtle comments that shape how children view the world, not the real ones. Not like, no, don't do that. Don't play with fire. It's the subtle things. Yeah, right. I'm not against joking around, and yes, the boy did not look traumatized, but if part of a bigger picture, then kids are influenced by what they see and hear and attitudes. Look, there are differences in men and women. There are differences in gender. Do kids this age get it? No. Is it necessary that they get it? No. But is it okay for Lewis Hamilton, regardless of what he does for a living, to stand up and say what he thinks? Yes, it's okay. The Wells Report has the executive producer, the Philip Brown. I'm John David Wells. Have a great one. See you tomorrow. I went too long.
No, you didn't. You good.
Okay, buddy.
All right, man. Hey, have a good one.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Glad we're back in the everyday now. So.
Yep, me too. I missed being on the air.
All right, man. Well, I'll catch you tomorrow.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too. Well, hello. You ready to go? You want to get out of here? What have you here? Okay. Well, how very nice of you. Let's get out of here so you can get going. What did you think of the show? Okay. I thought it was pretty good. All right. God's blessings upon you and yours.